Us here. Welcome back to another episode of the Empower Grief Journey podcast. I'm your host, Chris Mamone, and I'm an acceptance coach who helps people heal from grief, loss, and trauma to discover their self-acceptance and step into their personal power. This podcast is your dedicated space for healing, growth, and transformation. Each episode shares insightful and inspirational stories, along with practical tools and actionable insights that can help guide you along your healing journey. Today, I have a very awesome guest with us. His name is Dallas. He's a 16-hour coach and an emotional baggage handler. He lives in the city of Duncan on Vancouver Island in Canada. His experiences come from failing a lot. He is an author, speaker, and a coach. After cancer, addiction, suicidal, loss of marriage, family, business, and home. After going through the year of life collapse, starting over from the very bottom at 60 years of age, he shares with us his power griefs journey. We all walk a hard road, we just wear different shoes. And today, Dallas helps people get out of their story minds. Dallas, I want to welcome you onto the podcast, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Yeah, and I'm going to share with you really quickly. You and I have had some similar walks of life, believe it or not. And I love your way of saying the year of life collapse. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, first, I'd like to start by saying, please return your chair to the upright position and fasten your seatbelt. I wonder if we can begin with an agreement, Chris.
Sure thing,
Because
Dallas.
the agreement is the destination, and it only can happen at the beginning. That agreement is this: what does every human being want from life? Ask any parent what they want for their child, pin them down after doctor, lawyer, astronaut, and they will simply say, for my child to be healthy and happy. Would you agree that every human being alive is in search of their healthy, happy place, a quiet mind, peace, love, happiness?
I couldn't agree more with you, Dallas. In my side of coaching, I always say people want to feel seen, heard, and understood, and to feel fulfillment in their life.
So we now know the purpose of 8 billion human beings. The question has been answered. Everyone agrees to it. What's stopping us?
Mm.
What's
There's a lot.
stopping us is our story. Chris is a story. I meet Chris at a cocktail party and I say, nice to meet you, Chris. Tell me something about yourself. And you begin telling me about your story. You're not telling me about your true self. You're telling me about a story about yourself. Now, from birth, we are born into fear and insecurity. That is the act of childbirth, to come into this world. It's why our basement has fear and insecurity behind almost everything in life. Is tainted by it. And we are traumatized as a child. Everyone is. Some people it's much heavier, some people it's lighter. And along the way, every experience, everything we're told, everything we see, we hear, we feel, we taste, we smell, we take in, it all becomes a part of this story. We reach a certain age, usually fairly young, 10 to 15 years old, where we begin to self-identify that I am my story. The story is me. And I wear clothes my way, and I have an attitude my way, and I'm fearful of speaking out, or I'm confident. All these things come from what we've learned from our story. And most of our story we didn't write. It's written for us by the world around us, by our parents, by classmates, by church leaders, all sorts of people. Well, I came out of my childhood knowing I was no good. I didn't fit in. I was wrong. I wasn't made to be here, obviously, because I failed in school. I failed everything. I was a loser. I was a failure. I was dumb. And I was told this outright by school teachers, by church leaders, by Boy Scout leaders, you name it. And so you learn that this is who you are. This creates the self-image in the story mind that we cling on to. And that story mind is kept in place by this thing we might call an ego. I call it the deceiver. Now, when you collect this up, we call it emotional baggage. And it's painful. It offers suffering. And every human carries emotional baggage with them. And throughout their life, some people, we go through more traumatic events. We add to that baggage. That baggage gets heavy. We all arrive at our first addiction. Every human being does. And it's the same addiction. It's called blame. I blame the school. I blame the church. I blame my parents. I blame the Boy Scouts. I blame my teachers. I blame my boss. I blame my kids. I blame my partner. I blame the economy. I blame the government. I blame the weather some days. And some people go through their whole life with that addiction. And why do we have it? Because like any addiction, it's a defensive system. It keeps us not responsible. It keeps us at a distance from what? From our pain, from that emotional baggage that we're supposed to face. It is the challenge of life. And we don't face it. We find a way to stay away and defend ourselves from it. And the ego deceiver is always there to support us. Yeah, you're not wrong. It's them. They're the ones that did this. You're just unlucky. They're lucky. It's always there to defend you from that pain, to never look back in the mirror what it really reflects. So my pain was good enough that I needed more than blame. Well, I found alcohol. And alcohol is wonderful. All my friends were having fun, partying, going out. What a fabulous medication against my pain. I didn't feel any pain. Life was great. But then pretty soon the weekends weren't enough. I had to drink on Monday and start drinking Thursday. And then fill in the gap of Wednesday and Thursday. Pretty soon it's every day. And then it's not enough. I'll take cocaine. That'll be good. And sure enough, rev it right back up. I'm doing great. No pain. The pain is gone. Keep the devil away. I'm a happy man. Yeah, it turns out it starts to go wrong. You might have heard the stories. So I think that emotional baggage builds a pressure in the body. It's called the nervous system. And it begins to build such a pressure that it looks for escape. That's why the stress of the mind is expressed in the body, because the body is an outlet for the mind. There is no other outlet. And so people will turn to obesity, heart disease, cancer, all sorts of ways the body will try to express that pressure. My first expression was a bout of depression. Lasted about 2 weeks. It was horrific. It was almost unable to articulate how it feels unless you've gone through it. I literally wake up one morning and the world is empty. There is nothing. There is no sense of myself. There is no feeling. Feeling is our greatest connection to life. It's what stimulates everything. Depression removes feeling. It's horrific to be without feeling. And I now know it's not a disease. It's not an illness. It's a wake-up call. It's saying, I am going to suppress all this pain, anger, frustration, suffering. I'm going to suppress it all down to the basement until you feel nothing. And I'm telling you, this is the wake-up call. You need to change. Well, like any logical person, of course, I just dismiss it. And 2-3 weeks away, and it goes away. And I go, yeah, that was weird, but it's gone. I'm fine. I've heard about this depression thing. Yeah, no big deal. 3 months later, the mind says, so you didn't listen. I have the best day of my life arrive. I have the winning of the lottery. I wake up one morning, 4 months into the pandemic, with cancer. Absolutely wonderful day. This is the best thing that could ever happen. because this wake up call you wake up to. This one shakes you awake. So over the next 12 months to the day, what I call the year of life collapse, I went through surgery and treatment. My wife left. I lost the house, the business, my family in any way you could see a family. And I ended up alone and broken, still alcoholic, and now suicidal. Because that was an obvious answer now. Because the minute I woke up alone and suicidal, my mind went to grief, to regret. And I think all grief has regret in its basement. A feeling that something could have been different. Something could have turned out different. And somehow I'm attached to that regret of what has happened. And that attachment becomes very deep. And it's almost in the same ballpark with depression, because it pushes a sensitivity level to a place that is so painful. It is almost numb. And I think that's why grief is, again, hard to articulate to people, because there is a numbness, a level to it that is just a deadening pain, almost like you're trapped in it.
I couldn't agree more with you about that, because I lost my son to stillborn, and I always get asked this question about how does that feel, and I say numb. The way you described it, numb. And somebody says, well, what's numb? And I said, you just feel dead inside. You feel like there's nothing. You don't feel anger, you don't feel sadness, you don't feel happy, you don't feel joy, you don't feel anything. You just feel dead, numb, right inside there. There's nothing going on.
And I think the reason is similar to depression. Your mind is saying, this is very painful to your nervous system, so I'm going to depress it a bit.
Yep.
It's not full depression, but it's enough to give you that numb, empty, horrible feeling.
Well, because a lot of people don't know, but our brain is 2 million years old. It's not wired to make you happy. It's not going to, but it is wired for survival. So if something is very painful or very, very hard to deal with, that thing will suppress it down, just like you said, and it'll say, hey, this is too painful for you right now. I'm going to take this away. And then when you do get the skills to take care of it, it'll bring it back up for you to address at that point.
Yeah. And for me, there was a huge upside to remembering that, because when I was suicidal, I fell into that same feeling, that low level, empty darkness. And for some reason, my mind went straight to, oh, this is just like that depression bout you had last year. Maybe this isn't suicide. Maybe this is depression. Maybe you're confused. Maybe you don't have it right. And that stopped me. And then divine intervention, I don't know what you call it. I never believed in, you see in movies, Chris, hit me like a bolt of lightning. And I always think that's such a silly Hollywood kind of thing, nothing like that ever happened in my life. And I heard people say it, but I don't really believe it. Well, it happened. I'm preparing dinner one night, and in the background, there's a podcast on, and a man's talking about consciousness. And I'm thinking, yeah, woo-woo, consciousness, big deal. Now, let's return to the story mind for a second. Everything we are is yesterday. We are historic beings, because everything we know at this moment comes from yesterday. Everything we understand about ourselves, other people, the world around us, all comes from information that we've gathered in our story, come to believe, given meaning to, made it solid, impactful on our lives. Everything about us, we are yesterday people. And this man in this podcast says this one line: show me yesterday. That was it. I literally dropped the knife and almost fell to my knees, because my brain instantly went, wait a minute. wait a minute. How do I show you yesterday? Where is this thing called yesterday? There's nothing tangible. I can't go to the cupboard and pull yesterday out and go, look, Chris, here's yesterday. What do you think? What is it? And so for 3 months, this rolled in my head. Show me yesterday. Month after month, I wouldn't stop. And I realized yesterday is the story mind. And that story, I believed, took me to the edge of death. How is it possible that a story could have that kind of impact on my life? That my belief in a story and the meaning I attached to that story took me to the edge of death. This is stunning. When this clarity arrives, for me, it said, my story's not true. It's the past. If I was traumatized 50 years ago, it's not here today. I'm not being traumatized. How did it get here? Oh, I put it in a bag, threw it over my shoulder, and carried it with me for 50 years. It doesn't exist. There's no emotional baggage. It's all in my mind. I absolutely created this in my mind and carried it with me. I have a connection to you. The first pregnancy with my wife, within 6 weeks of delivery, we had chosen a name. We were building a nursery. I was painting the walls with trees and flowers and things. We had gotten a crib. We were, and it miscarries. And it was, I didn't know the connection I was making. I didn't know how emotionally connected I was becoming. I would not have said it to anyone. It's just this thing, and it's going to happen in 6 weeks. And yeah, I'm looking forward to being a dad, blah, blah, blah. But when this happened, I was floored. It was like I lost something. Something was ripped out of me. It was real pain. Mm-hmm. And I could not believe that this could happen. And when I got to this moment on the other side of my year of life collapse, this memory came rushing back to me. That this is a part of this story I've held. And as soon as I realized it was only my attachment to that story, I had no reason to stay aware in that story. That was memory. When I am here focused right now with you talking, my mind cannot travel into memory. It doesn't have the ability. It's called attention. We walked into grade 1, and our school teacher gave us the secret to life. She walked to the front of the class and went, "Attention, class, attention." It's the first thing we heard in grade 1. That's the secret to life right there. Because all of our pain, all of our suffering, every regret, grief, anxiety, worry, concern, trouble, everything, all the baggage is not in attention. It is out of attention in our memories from yesterday and our worries about tomorrow. Otherwise, it cannot live. It cannot exist. When you, Chris, are attentive and maybe in a state of flow because you're working really solidly on something, playing a sport, with children, talking with me or someone else, writing, whatever it is you're doing, when you are in that zone of attention, you have no grief. You have no pain. It cannot exist. This is the secret we're all missing. Our lives are only happening right here. They can't happen yesterday. We have to reimagine, recreate, and bring yesterday to this moment before we can feel it. And this is every human struggle, is to try and stay out of memory and imagination.
You know, Dallas, you're reminding me of a Buddhist story I heard on my journey about 3 years ago with what
Hmm.
you just said. And I'm going to share it really quickly. It's a quick story. There's two Buddhist monks walking a trail back to their monastery, and they're going through a travel through the woods and through the mountains. And on their journey, by the way, there was a older monk, senior monk, and there was a junior monk with them, and he was teaching the junior monk philosophies as they were traveling. They came across a river that a woman was at the edge of the river, and the woman said, I need help crossing the river. The senior monk said, Not a problem, I'll help you. And the junior monk said, You can't do that. We're not allowed to touch women. What are you thinking? And the junior monk says, She needs help. I'm going to help her. So he picks up the woman, carries her across the river. Junior monk follows him. He drops her off at the edge of the river, and they part ways. They go on their journey. About 3 hours later, the junior monk looks at the senior monk and says, You touched the woman. You helped her across the river. You weren't supposed to do that. Our rules don't allow for that. Our space doesn't hold that. And he said, Do you want to learn a powerful lesson right now? And the junior monk said, What's that? And he said, I left the woman at the edge of the river. You're still carrying her. And, and the reason I bring this up, by the way, is because of what you just said, is that the junior monk was really confused because, yes, there's a rule with that, that the senior monk knew there was a greater purpose behind it. But he took
Right.
that moment, by the way, to carry the woman from one side of the river to the other and leave it there and move forward. And it's very parabolic to the story
Beautiful.
that you're talking about, which is
Yeah.
when we carry our stories with us, they can cause damage. They can. And so we
Oh,
have
yeah.
to learn when this story is coming up all the time. Are we putting meaning and purpose behind it? Is it serving us? Is it not serving us? You gave a great
Absolutely.
you gave a great example with your story you shared. So
So, so let's look at this because memory and belief are maybe the most powerful elements in our minds. We live in a world that is focused on history constantly. You've probably heard the saying, I think it's from the philosopher George Santayana, and it goes something like, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Have you heard that?
I feel like I've heard that years ago. I didn't know who said that, by the way.
Yeah. You know, that is at the basis of everything we go through in life. In school, we're taught history, we're taught about our country, other countries. Our whole society relies on it. We have Remembrance Day for veterans, their service to country. This history creates patriotism, belonging, the group, the family. We talk about our grandparents, great grandparents. Why is this so important? Because this is all a collective story mind. It is all a yesterday world. And I think we've got it completely wrong. I think the right saying is those who remember their past are condemned to repeat it. We don't learn from history, we repeat history. There is no teaching. Now, you have to parse out technology, the brain from the mind. The brain, we learn skills, tools, techniques for doing our job, for looking after our kids, for whatever, those are the skills. But the mind, this story mind, is what controls us and pushes us around, what keeps us from not being confident or taking the risk, stepping forward, being what we can be. So I really think we're trapped in this idea of history and that we don't require it. I don't require a personal history. It gives nothing. It offers nothing. In fact, it has a lot of baggage. We don't require a story. People say to me, but if I didn't have a story, who would I be? You would be who you are right here, right now. Every human being, ask any human being, look into the face of a newborn baby. Every human being who has done it sees the exact same thing. They see love, beauty, happiness. That's all they see. Well, I think we don't see the baby. I think we see our heart reflected in the baby's face. I think we see our true self. Our natural state is reflected in that baby's face because the baby is pre-story mind. The baby doesn't have a story. The baby doesn't have a name. The baby doesn't have an experience. We're seeing the true nature of ourselves. 3 months ago, my mother died. 2 hours before her death, I looked down into her face. What did I see? I saw the same thing as the baby's face. I saw beauty, I saw love, and I felt nothing but happiness. No regret, no remorse, no fear, no loss, no grieving, no mourning. It's beautiful. It's life. At the beginning and at the end, we see ourselves. And in between, we're filled with this drama, this huge Netflix series we call our life, our story. This story is this storm that tugs us and pulls us everywhere. You said earlier, we're not wired for happiness. I totally disagree. I think it is the wiring of our brain, is happiness. I believe happiness is our nature, absolute nature, but it's covered by this story, by this fiction that we're stuck in.
You're not wrong.
Watching the series, waiting for the next Netflix show to come out. We can't wait. Look at the collective story mind. It is based in the same thing as we are individually, fear and insecurity. Those people over there are wrong. We're right. They're bad. We're good. So much so I can whip you into a fervor and make you pick up a gun and go kill them. That is the destruction of the story mind.
You know, Dallas, you're reminding me of two books I read a while ago. One of them is called Untethered Soul, and the other one's The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And something that this book, Living Untethered, Untethered Soul, taught me was that it asked throughout this book. I got annoyed with the question when I read through it, but I finally understood it. It always asks this question, who are you? And it said, if you ever ask anybody that question, they'll say, well, I'm a lawyer, I'm a business owner, I'm a dad, I'm a mom, I'm a school teacher, I'm a grocery shop clerk, I'm this person, that. And it said, you're none of those things. Those are just titles society gave you. That's not who you are.
That's the story.
And so this book talked about how we, over our course of our lives, we create a story about who we are. But the funny part is it's the furthest thing from who we are. Just like you just described about when we see a newborn child. I know when I saw my child, I didn't have any story, anger, anything going on in my life that was happening in that moment. I didn't. I had my son. I had a veil around it, and I saw what you saw. And that's where that story didn't exist in that moment. All that exists there was that present moment. And that was it.
Exactly.
Just like you're talking about. So.
It is amazingly simple. And that's why it's so difficult for people to see it. We are consumed by, educated to believe, and we seem to see complexity everywhere. Life is hard. There's struggle, war, disease, famine, poverty. We think that's the world. It says there's 8 billion chefs cooking the same recipe, but everyone comes out a little different tasting, a little different looking. But we're actually all the same. All our stories are the same. They'll be different in appearance and direction and moments and up and down and, intensity, but it's all the same story. Why do we connect to a Hollywood movie? Why can you be brought to almost tears watching a movie? Your rational and logical mind knows it's a movie. It knows it's just a thing on a screen. It's not real. Your rational mind knows it's just a story. How can we become so emotionally attached? Because we are a story. It's only when we get out of our story that Hollywood has nothing to offer you. Because it's all this fake, fictitious thing. There's no reality to it. Now, I'm not trying to pretend that it's the Matrix and we're not really here. And you know what I mean? Because I
Yeah,
got up,
it's
because I got up this morning and stubbed my toe in a chair and it hurt like hell.
yeah,
We're here. We're here.
I try to tell people that I got a hard bit of advice when my grandfather died, and same thing happened when my son passed. I had a lot of anger and emotion going on, and something that really triggered me and really upset me, but now I fully understand it, was this advice I got from one of my coaches, and he said, that wasn't your experience. And he said, I want to talk about the story that you're feeding yourself right now.
Yes.
I'm sharing with listeners, I was very angry, borderline pissed when I heard this, because when you're in the throes of grief, that's what's going to happen. So,
Yep.
prefacing that to say that in that moment, by the way, you created a story because you attached yourself to that moment. And you took that experience that someone else had in their life as your own, and you created a story to say, this happened to me instead of for me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I sat back and got past the anger with it, and I started saying, my grandfather's death was an experience that I had. It was not my own experience. His passing was his experience. I was there to
Right.
see it and have my own experience of what happened, but that was not mine to own. And that was the thing, by the way, that broke that story that I had in my own head of suffering and depression that we all cause on ourselves. Because I've gone through depression myself, and I've learned that the story we tell ourselves feeds that thing a lot. It's like feeding a hungry,
Absolutely.
hungry hippo. Um, so
Absolutely.
when you have the power, by the way, to notice your story, and I think that's what you're shedding a lot of light on today, and I'm very grateful for, is showing people, think about the story you tell yourself. What are you feeding up here all the time? Are you saying things are happening to you and you're at circumstance of the world and the things going on around you? Or are you saying, I am who I am and I get to create my own story? I get to create the meaning and purpose behind that. And I think that's the big difference why you said too, by the way, that Hollywood doesn't feed you after a certain point. I can't stand watching stuff half the time anymore because I went through those stories and said it's just fake things people make up to get an emotional reaction out of you, to try to create a story and shift your narrative a certain way, versus you taking power back into your life to create that story that you decide and want.
So you give me enough points there, I could talk 2 hours on each one. Um, but I want to key on one, and that was you mentioned almost got you angry when the coach made you face your creation, that you were at the center of this, that you were responsible for what you're feeling. That's a really important place to key on because we've had 100 years of psychotherapy, um, psychiatry, psychoactive drugs, diagnosis of mental illness, talk therapy. 100 years of the best minds working on it. I suggest it's been a complete and utter failure, and we need to stop. In fact, it is causing mental illness, not helping it. It has never healed the person in its history. It can't heal anyone because no one can heal. There's no such thing as healing because you are in the story. You cannot heal. You can only leave the story you believe. You don't understand your emotional baggage, work through it, make up with your broken little child. You never do. You put the bags down and walk away. Why? Because your past did happen. You can't change the fact it happened. No therapy can change the past. You have to walk away. We've got more people today on psychoactive drugs than ever before. We've got more diagnoses of mental illnesses than ever before in history. We've got more people in talk therapy than ever before. Younger and younger people struggling with their mental health. This
I'm
has
so
been
glad you brought that up.
an abject disaster for
You
all
know,
of
I'm
society. We think we know our brain. We've got neurologists talking about it every day, scientists, experts. We have 75 million Americans who have taken a diagnosis from their doctor that they have a brain chemical imbalance. We don't have the medical knowledge to measure the chemicals in the human brain. This thing is a fictitious creation by so-called experts. And people are running around believing they have a chemical imbalance, and it's the reason for their struggle. So they are attaching to, believing, taking ownership of, loving their image of a broken person. And we see them standing up in social media going, look at me, I'm special. This is a disaster. The crisis isn't mental illness. The crisis is the story mind believing that there's something wrong. No one has something wrong. You just
Well,
have a confusion in your story.
well, Dallas, you bring up a really good point about what you just said because I've been to talk therapy multiple times and I'm happy to share this with my audience because I just don't care. When
Yeah,
you go to talk therapy, 90% of the time, I'll tell you this, you're reliving the past constant. And what actually happens, by the way, when you relive that, you're throwing your emotion and your story right back to that moment where it is. And I can give a good example today. And I'm glad, you've had a miscarriage, I've had a stillborn, and I'll say that if you were to walk back in that moment, you can close your eyes and go right back to it. You can. All those emotions come right to the surface. And so
absolutely.
that therapy, by the way, it didn't move you forward. It didn't change who you were. You actually went back into that trauma state, by the way, and lived there again. And so what it did was reinforced all of that emotion and experience. Whereas when I'm in coaching with clients, I say, we can talk about that, but we're not going to live there. I'll tell you that
Exactly.
because we can't change that. It happened. I can't get my son back. I can't get my grandfather back. I can't get that job back. I can't get all those things back in my life. They already happened. So
That's right.
what we have to do is exactly what you said with the emotional baggage. Some of us carry it around short term, long term, depends on who we are and what story we feed. But we also have that option, and that's why I love what you've been saying today, is that we can create a news story. That news story doesn't have to say, this all happened to me and I am burdened by this, or I have to live in this thing that is the past. I can go forward, by the way, and create a new story. It doesn't mean I forgot. It doesn't mean I let go, but it means that I'm able to move forward and carry forward to create a new story for me that can be more empowered.
Or or you can win the Oscar for best editing in a major motion picture. Your story is your movie. You read the script as the main actor in your movie. So instead of making a new story, edit the story you've been living as a first step of escaping the story completely. I don't want a story. I don't want to make a story. I went in and began editing my story. 75% of your life, Chris, right now, you can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
You don't remember what you had for breakfast on September 12th, 2012. Tell me about it. Tell me all about that breakfast.
I couldn't tell you if I tried.
However, if you had eaten that breakfast back in 2012 and you had said to yourself, oh my God, this is the most amazing breakfast in my life. This is a life-changing breakfast. This is incredible. I love this breakfast. And all that day, you'd repeat it in your mind 50 times. And over the next 2 weeks, you kept remembering this breakfast and thinking about it and feeling it and tasting it and going, oh my God, I love this breakfast. I can't believe that breakfast. It's amazing. I want to tell everybody about my breakfast. If you'd done that today, you could tell me exactly everything about that breakfast. That's the simple, repetitive memory system that we live with. You sit down in your theater, you watch your movie over and over, and you focus on the drama, the dramatic trauma of the movie until you know it perfectly, line by line. You know every movement of the face, the feeling, the sweat on your brow, everything is alive. 75% of your life you can't remember. Why? Because our brains aren't meant to remember it. We're not even supposed to be playing this game this way. We're supposed to be right here in love and happiness and joy every moment of the day. Why else would we be here? To struggle and fight and worry and complain? It's a silly view of life. Of course, we're here to be happy. 8 billion of us are seeking happiness, and only the story is ever in the way. And that is only memory and imagination. It is so simple. And this is why it's so hard for people to see, because we're so stuck in it. The reason I'm a 16-hour coach is because when I came out of my year of life collapse, I realized, man, I've got to try and make things small. So I said, oh, collapse your life now that it has collapsed. Look at it in a collapsed way. What's a day? 24 hours. I slept 8 hours. How many hours have I got to live? 16 hours. Okay, Dallas, you have 16 hours to live. That's it. Your whole life. What do you do to be the best you can do, to be the healthiest you can be? Let's see. Could I go for a walk for 30 minutes in 16 hours? So I felt good, fresh air. Yeah, I could probably do that. In 16 hours, I could probably put 30 minutes aside. Okay, good. There we go. When you get to the fridge to eat, could you pay attention and pick some good food instead of the crap you've been eating for all these years? Yeah, I could probably one day, right? I only have to do this one day. Yeah, one day. Oh, I can probably do it for one day. Yeah, I could eat well for one day. Could you stay away from alcohol, drugs for one day? Just like AA said, one day at a time. Could you do it for one day? Yeah, I can do it for one day. I can do it. Could you call somebody you love and tell them you love them? One phone call, just this day, one day. Yeah, I could do that. Could you focus for 4 or 5 hours and do really good work that helps keep a roof over your head and food in your belly and clothes on your back? Look after your kids? Yeah, one day. I only have to do it one day. Is that right? Yeah, one day. Okay, I can do this for one day. Chris, you only ever live one day, 16 hours. You wake up tomorrow morning, the gift. You get to do it again. And it's a do-over. You can even improve if you want. And you only have 16 hours to do it. You'll only ever have 16 hours. We don't have to worry about 10 years from now what might happen. All we are is a human living in 16 hours. That's it. Make life 16 hours long. Don't worry about tomorrow. It takes care of itself. You can't live tomorrow. You can't live yesterday. Be here. Do the best job you can do of being a human being. Stay in attention 16 hours. That's all you have to do. It is so simple. And when people do it, they are stunned because there is no grief, no remorse, no fear, no insecurity, no worry, nothing, because you're here. It's a beautiful place to live.
I love that,
Everyone is
Dallas.
beautiful.
I love what you're saying with that because it really is that simple. At the end of the day, it really is. And you're reminding me of a guy I met in a cancer ward back when my grandfather had cancer. I met a guy that he was terminal too, by the way, but he was so carefree and so upbeat. And I was sitting there going, how the hell do you have leukemia that's terminal, by the way? And if you don't take chemo regularly, you're gonna die. And the guy, and I asked him that in a very nice way, by the way. And you know what this guy told me with a big smile on his face? I racked up over $1 million in medical debt, rocking right now. And then he said, on top of that, I'm getting married in January. And he said, guess what? I could die tomorrow. Do you think I care? He said, I'm not worried about paying back that $1 million. Somebody else is going to eat that cost. And then he said, on top of that, I'm getting married. I don't have tomorrow promised like the rest of you guys. And he said this all with a big smile on his face. And in the middle of my little depressive moment there, I looked at the guy and I said, there's something really wrong right now. The fact that I have, like you just said, Dallas, I said, I get days up the yin yang right now. I get do-overs, plenty of them. This guy's not promised tomorrow, like you just said. We got tomorrow, we can try again. But this guy didn't have tomorrow. He might not have tomorrow. He's not promised it. And I sat there and said, this guy's that happy, and the rest of us are walking around right now saying we're too focused on the future that we can't even be here. That one broke my brain, and while you were talking about that, you reminded me of that guy, and it's a beautiful perspective because all of us aren't guaranteed tomorrow. We're not on the real reality of life. Something can happen, whatever it may be. But
Hey,
when we live too far in the future all the time, and we're always trying to say, well, I'll do this, when that, I'll get to this when I can, or oh, I'll get there over there, or well, this thing over here in my past is dragging back in the future here. We're never being present like you and I are on this podcast right now, talking to each other and in just engaging right here in the moment of what this is. And that's the power behind what you just said is, and Eckhart Tolle talks about it in The Power of Now. All you have is right here, right now. We don't know what's going to happen in 2 hours today. We don't. We don't even care about what happened 2 hours before this podcast. We don't
yeah,
care.
and doesn't mean you don't have goals. It doesn't mean you don't have dreams. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means you're not waiting for when you reach your goal, when you reach your dream, when you achieve, when you get, because that's the problem. People live in that hope, that dream, that something out in front of them instead of being here. Because you can only ever do the work toward a goal right here. You
Hmm.
don't work at it tomorrow. You work at it right now. Your future is made now, not somewhere in the future. The future unfolds because of what you do here and now.
Well,
So I so
that's why I
that's
call that's why I call it the empowered grief journey because I tell people grief has a power, by the way, to
oh yeah.
destroy you or create you. It's got that power. And you, by the way, as listeners, anybody going through grief, you get to decide which road you're going to take. You get to decide left or right, blue pill, red pill, whatever you want to call it. You get to decide that path. And that's a place that when you get to that spot, that's where you're empowered and that's where you can move forward.
Yeah, that's why I always say depression is not an illness, which is controversial for a lot of people get very upset at me because they've been diagnosed. It's an illness by their doctor. And I say no, because of what you just said. It is a power for good or for bad. And because it's that, it can't be an illness. It's yours. You own it. Your responsibility for it. And people, oh, you're trying to blame the victim. Oh my God. And they freak out. But what are we if we are not fully responsible, radically responsible for everything that goes on with us? That's hard for people to get there. That's why that first addiction for all humans is blame, because it's keeping that responsibility away. Don't make
Yeah.
me responsible. That means I've got to do something. I have to take charge. I don't want to do that. And this is this incredibly fragile young population we're seeing come up. Is they've been so distant from that responsibility, handed so much, here's the reason why on their plate, that they don't have to face themselves. And now they're too fragile to do it.
You know,
They just
Dallas,
want that outside
I'll,
security to save them all the time. If I get enough likes, if I get enough followers, I'm going to be okay. Something out there is going to make me whole.
and I'm going to share with listeners, as I'm an open person, I'll share that the biggest reason why I got out of my depressive state and I got into my empowered state, the biggest one is what Dallas just said, which is that when we choose to be empowered, meaning we take on things, and I always phrase it in my coaching practice, by the way, if you're looking externally everywhere around you for something to blame, something to pin blame on all the time, I can tell you right now, those problems you have, whatever they may be, will all sit here and fester. And they will be waiting for you, by the way, just like people waiting at an airport for the plane to come up to the gate. They will be sitting there waiting, ready to jump. As soon as that plane lands, they're all going to be there. And one of the biggest shifts I made in my life is I stepped up and said, I'm done blaming everything and everyone around me. I'm done with that. I'm done. I'm gonna go look inside and say I'm gonna blame myself. And I got looked at like a crazy person when I said that. That was the funny part. But what happened to me on my journey when I said I'm gonna blame myself, Dallas, you're right. It's hard to blame yourself, really hard. It's hard
Absolutely.
to it's hard to look at yourself and say, I have these problems. I feel this way. I'm at fault. These are the decisions I made. It's really hard for you to have that place to sit there and blame yourself. It's very hard.
And I wouldn't call it blame.
Yeah.
It's responsibility for it. I'll say to people like, they'll say, well, I'm not responsible. Somebody did this to me. I was traumatized. I was abused. This happened to me. I go, that's true. Absolutely true. But who brought it from there to here? Who carries it? Who has let it hurt them? That's the responsibility. If my trauma happened 50 years ago, I'm responsible for keeping it. I'm responsible for looking after it, feeding it, nurturing it, loving it in a way, keeping it as a part of me. I'm responsible. And until we get to that and we realize we are responsible for this, there's no moving forward because you're in blame. You're in blame from your past. You're in this memory that is the excuse for yourself that you think you are. You know, the personal development world today, you constantly hear, believe in yourself. I hear it in cancer groups, in mental health groups, in fitness groups, everywhere. Believe in yourself. My big line with what my clients I work with is, do not believe in yourself. Because the self you're believing in is this story that you believe is yourself. And the story is the reason you're being asked to have discipline and grind. You're trying to paint the house, put in new windows, buy new furniture and appliances like it's going to be a better life. But the foundation is this story you believe. So there is no self to believe in. Don't believe in yourself. And it's the difference between who you are, the story. Like you said, doctor, lawyer, father, son, brother, that's the who. There's a what you are. The what is that baby's face, my mother's face. The what is when you were 12 years old, you went out in the backyard in the grass, you put your sleeping bag down on a beautiful summer night, and you looked up at the sky, just incredible stars. And your mind goes, wow. And that's all you are. You're right there with it. You're not thinking about anything. You're just attached to this wow universe. That moment is the baby's face, my mother's face. You are the who of the what you are right then. But here's the incredible magic. Now I'm 60 years old and I walk out in my backyard on a warm summer's evening and I lie down in that grass and I look up at those stars, and what happens? Same as the 10-year-old boy. Wow. It doesn't age. There is no age. There is no time to what we are. It's eternal. This is what we are. We are lost in the who, the story, the movie, lost in time. And people say, oh, time's the most valuable thing you have. Time is worthless. It's completely meaningless. When you're looking at that baby's face, there's no time. When you're looking at the stars, there's no time. When you come out on a beautiful vista on a hike and you just go, wow, there's no time. When you stop and look at a flower and go, it's just incredible. Look at this flower. There's no time. Time doesn't exist. It's only in our movie, in our story. Because it's got pain. It's got suffering. It's got challenge. We need grind. We need discipline. Discipline's a horrible idea. Discipline is the glue that keeps you in a story. Because you've got this story that hurts you and you're being told, be strong, be tough, fight, discipline. You can do it, get through it. Outrageous. So it's stay in your pain and fight. That's what life's about. What a bizarre story we've fallen into and believe. And people will say to me, but hold it a second. This is all well and good. But I got to go to work tomorrow, you know. I've got a life to live. I've got a family. I can't live in some, lie on my back staring at the stars world of happiness. There's a reality here. And I go, of course there is. But what happens at work? Tell me the problem you had at work. Oh, my boss is a real a-hole. Yesterday I was fighting with Janet in receiving, and and tomorrow I've got this meeting and I got So your work is dreaming about tomorrow and being in pain about yesterday. So the solution? Don't go to work yesterday or tomorrow. Go to work today. Go to work and play tennis. Attention, flow, have fun, enjoy the game. That's all.
You
Just
know,
don't
Dallas,
sit
here,
around.
you reminded me of something I share with people a lot when that conversation in particular comes up, and I always say, "Have to?" That's my question for you. Have to?
No
I mean,
such
I
thing.
I tell people all the time, there's three things you have to do every day: eat, sleep, and go to the bathroom. Those are your three have tos for the day. Everything
About it.
else is optional. And so, thinking about what's going to happen at work tomorrow, that's optional. Dreaming about being unhappy, that's optional too. Feeding that story that really upsets you and does not make you happy or bring you any kind of peace, that's optional. You're choosing that thing there. You're choosing it. And the minute, by the way, you give yourself permission, is what I like to phrase it. Give yourself permission not to, by the way. It might be uncomfortable at first because, again, you're used to the story, like Dallas has been telling us today. You get used to the story and how it plays out. But when you break off the story into a new chapter or you revise that story to do something different, you start realizing and going, wow, that was not empowering me. That was not making me feel good. That was not bringing happiness to my life. That wasn't bringing purpose to my life. That wasn't helpful to me. And you step over there to that new story and you go, yeah, I don't have to. I'm good. I'm all set.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place to get to. And
It
it's
really
hard for
is.
people, if you're 50 years old, you've been practicing as the actor in your movie for 50 years. It's pretty hard to suddenly get off the stage because
It is.
you're so attached to the character that you think is you. It's very difficult to walk away. So
It really is.
I'm not trying to pretend that it's an easy journey, but the reality of it is simple, incredible
Mhm.
simplicity. And simplicity is some of the hardest things to do.
I think it's hard. Simplicity is hard for us because we live in such a complex world. And I've always told people, by the way, your story was written before you even noticed it. And if I were to
Yep.
tell most people the following, they'd look at me like deer in the headlights because I would tell them, what have you been told since day one? What have you been told? Go to school, go to college, get a job, get a house, get married, have kids, find a career. I said they already laid out your story for you. So you fell into that story somebody else created for you. But that story, by the way, might not necessarily line up for you, by the way. It might not be your path. It might not be the thing that brings you happiness. And I always share that some people don't want to have kids, not a problem. Some people don't want to go work a corporate job. That's cool too. If you want to lay on the stars in the grass and you live your life to your max happiness and you're good, that's good too. But there is no right or wrong there with that. There is no concept of you're doing something wrong that other people aren't. You're living your path and you're building your story the way it needs to be told for you and not anybody else. And that's where fulfillment really sits. I get asked a lot, why don't you care about watching the news or if the prince gets married in England? I don't care. It's their story. It's not my story. It doesn't belong in my chapter. So I let it go. And that
And
scares,
because
yeah,
nothing changes in the big story.
no, nothing does.
It's 2025. Go to 1925 and read the newspapers. It's the same story.
Yeah.
Nothing changes. There is nothing happening that is different. It's just this drama we keep getting fed as if it were different.
Mhm.
PTSD, it's not post traumatic stress disorder, it's past thought story disorder.
I
It's
like that
sad.
better.
It's sad, not seasonal affective disorder, story attachment disorder. Everything, every diagnosis is attached to our stories and our beliefs and the meanings we create. There is no meaning in life. None. You can't tell me an event in your life, anything that has happened, anything you have seen that came with meaning. Nothing comes with meaning. You create the meaning when you attach yourself to it and decide what it means. People go, oh, the meaning of life. It's ridiculous. It was meant for me. Outrageous. Nothing is meant for you. This universe has no meaning for you. Things aren't made for you. You're this beautiful, loving, happy creature that has the ability and the capacity to bring things in and decide what they mean, decide how you feel. That is the unbelievable power of you and 8 billion other people. I say Chris is the most important person on planet Earth. There is no doubt that that is reality. That is the truth. Chris is the most important person on planet Earth. Why would I say that? Because if Chris wasn't here, there wouldn't be a planet Earth. It wouldn't exist if you're not here, because you wouldn't know anything about it. And 8 billion other people are the most important people on planet Earth, because there wouldn't be a planet Earth if they weren't here. We are that what that we are, not who, not the story. And it's just the most beautiful place. I have nothing but energy, optimism, drive, passion. It's wonderful. I can do anything I want at any moment and be completely happy. This is the greatest example. Chris, I arrive at a speaking engagement. I stand up in front of 100 people. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dallas Collins. I was abused as a child, traumatized terribly. I've had a really hard time in life. Alcoholism, lost my wife, my family, my business. I've been through hell, cancer, almost died, almost committed suicide. I'm struggling, but I'm working hard. I've been through therapy, and I know I can get better. I know I can do better. And I'm speaking out to give other people hope and inspiration. And the whole audience goes, "Oh my God, what courage! Isn't he wonderful? Wonderful." Chris, I walk up in front of an audience to speak. I stand up and I say, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dallas Collins. I have no trauma. I have no fears or insecurities. I have no pain, no suffering, no worries. I don't have a problem in my life. I never have stress. I'm happy every day of my life, every minute of the day." And the whole audience goes, "Oh, geez, he's out of touch. He's sick. There's something wrong with him." So look at the world we live in. If I stand up and tell you I'm sick, I am normal and I'm applauded and I'm courageous. If I stand up and tell you I'm healthy and whole, I'm a weirdo. And people will run and hide because I'm not living in reality. That's how stuck we are, believing this story that isn't real. We fooled ourselves into believing it. And none of us have to. Everyone has the strength to leave it. Everyone has the ability to leave the story, the pain, the trauma, everything. Everyone has that strength inside of them. We're built with it. We are meant to be happy and healthy and whole. We are beautiful, loving creatures. That's all we are. And who needs to be anything else?
Exactly.
Every person goes to work and they think about, when I retire, then I get to slow down, take it easy, do what I want, maybe fulfill some dreams I've had since I was a kid. Waiting to get there. It's already here. You already won. You're already the winner of this life. The gift, my latest book is called The Gift is the Present. The gift is the 16-hour day. The present is now. And it is a present, like a gift at Christmas time you get to open every morning when you wake up. How could you not be enthralled and enthusiastic about it? I get 16 hours to love and just have a beautiful life. I mean, God, we should be so thrilled. And we're stuck in a story that tells us, yeah, but.
You know, Dallas, I'm going to share with you real quick, my friend. That's what came out of losing my son. I woke up one day. I had the following. I love to share this moment because it's what you're talking about. I woke up one day and I said, I've just gone through the worst thing possible in my life. The worst thing, the thing that is so painful. I still can't even talk to you about this day, by the way. It's that painful. Now, here's the thing. Everything else that goes on in my life, by the way, will never be as painful as this thing over here. It just won't. It just won't happen. And so I walk through life like you just said, by the way. I don't have problems. I don't have struggles. I don't have issues. I don't have drama. The reason why, by the way, is that yes, things still happen to me. Life goes on,
Yep.
but I don't pay attention to it because it's never going to be that. It's never going to be that bad. And now that because I've had that experience of the worst, I'll call it, everything
Yeah.
else is quiet. And I just go, guy cut me off on the freeway. That's fine. I said, person in the store that's got, hurried issues and bumping into everybody. That's cool too. I just learned to let everything go. And I watched, like you said, when you brought up that speech in front of an audience, that was a big way of describing what society's like. Most people see that and go, ooh, I got to react to that. There's a thing over here. People like us
Absolutely.
that get to that place in life where we say, I'm fine, I'm healed, and I'm whole. We see it and we go, that's fine, go do you. That's your thing. I don't worry about it. And when you
Right
can get to
on.
that place in your life, by the way, when you actually get to that peace, all of a sudden you start thinking that 95% of what you thought was problems are no longer problems. They're gone. They don't matter. And they're not going to matter, by the way, right here, right now. They're not going to matter 5 hours or 5 months or 5 years from now. They're not going to matter. So at the end of the
Remember the
day, yeah, go ahead.
remember the fires in LA back in January?
Yep.
One night I'm watching the news from there, and the backdrop is the cinders destroyed neighborhood, right? Of Palisades. And there's a young woman reporter. She's got a young woman on one side of her and a man probably in his 70s on the other side. Turns out they're father and daughter. They live 2 blocks apart. They've lost everything. That cinders behind them is their neighborhood. The reporter's talking to the daughter first, and the daughter is sobbing, absolutely shaking and trembling and sobbing and saying, my whole life is gone. All my memories are gone. Everything I worked for is gone. And she's sobbing in terrible pain, traumatized, feeling it deeply. And all of a sudden, you can see the reporter's eyes sort of flash to the father, the elderly man on the other side. He has a smirk on his face, almost a smile. And the reporter turns and says, you don't seem to be too upset. And he goes, it's just stuff.
Wow.
You want the secret to life? The daughter was so entangled, so attached to the physical outside world in a story that she believed held her meaning, that had been taken away, like you're heartbroken from a lost lover because you've attached to this ownership. And she was crumbling and hurting. And poor her. I feel for her. But the difference to her father that was obviously unattached, probably because he's gotten to an age where he realizes, as all people as they age begin to see a light that goes, all that stuff, all that achievement, worry, frustration, drive, struggle, desire really wasn't that important. I really don't have to find my meaning there. In fact, we can't find meaning there because it's a
Yeah.
story, it's not reality. We're trying to get meaning in a story. It's ephemeral, it's a fiction. The meaning is just in the what we are, the life. That's why so many elderly people come to that place and suddenly have this almost awakening to, holy crap, all that was a waste of time. It's a
Yeah,
stunning reality. The beauty is we can live now and not waste it, be in it and
exactly.
enjoy every minute of it.
Yeah, I had a friend lose her house to a fire that happened. It was an accidental thing. And I called her and was like, Deborah, you lost your house. Like, are you doing okay? She goes, Chris, it was just a house. It was just stuff. And I said, how can you say that? And she goes, I have insurance. I'll get a new house. Not a problem. And I
Yeah.
and I was I remember looking at her and I was going, how can you be this so calm when you just lost everything? And she goes, I'm gonna share with you something. I had so much crap in my garage that I said I was gonna clean out for 15 years. And guess what, Chris? I don't have to do it. And guess what? It's all garbage anyway. I was never gonna touch it before I died, so who cares? And I
Hey,
and
one of
and
the
she told
fastest.
me, yeah, she told me, she said, and exactly what Dallas's point is she said, if I attach myself so much to that stuff right now, I'll just suffer and cause myself more pain. When in reality land, I just got a get out of jail free card. And most people won't look at it like that, but I got it. And now I get to go get a brand new house paid by insurance. All my photos are up in the cloud. They're still there. Just get a new phone. I'm fine. She
Yeah.
said, I didn't lose anything in the sense that most people think. I didn't lose anything. She said all the shit I did lose didn't want. I never touched in 15 years. So did it really matter to me? Did I have an attachment to it? I had one now that it's lost, but I never had it while I had it. So that back to your point, Dallas, and we can wrap up on this, but your story that you talked about, attaching ourselves to that story is right where that dissociation comes in our life and causes problems.
Yeah. I mean, one of the fastest growing industries in North America for the last 25 years was storage lockers
Mm.
because people are attached to so much crap they can't throw it out. So they actually go rent space to keep it. I mean, that is stuck in a story that is not helpful.
Well, Dallas, I just want to say this has been a true pleasure to have you on the podcast today, my friend. I love your perspective that you shared about stories because I do talk about it in my coaching practice, but you have shared it in a light that I've yet to hear somebody discuss stories and the power and impact those can have on our ability to be present and create a life or even hold us back from creating and stepping into who we should be and who we need to become in our life. So I really just want to say thank you today for that.
Well, thanks for having me, Chris. It's been a pleasure.
And I usually end the podcast with a couple questions. My first one is if you saw somebody in grief today who's experiencing or feels stuck in it, what's one thing you'd say to them very quickly to help them move forward?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Dude, you can't. That's a fantasy of an idea of saving people. It takes time. I do with everyone is you need to examine your story. You need to be able to what if yourself. What if
Mm.
it isn't true? What if I could see it differently? What if my memories aren't as good as I think they are? What if?
I love
That's
that.
it's the path forward is what if.
I love that bit of advice because I do feel like when we get stuck, we are trapped in that story, like you said. And sometimes that story is no longer serving us today. And it's time to rewrite that story or edit it, as you said earlier in the podcast, and
Almost
become the
never
editor of our
serving
story.
us. Almost never serving us. We just think it is.
And then my last question I have for you, if people want to connect with you after listening to today's episode, where can they find you?
Call us at gmail.com.
Perfect. Do you have social
Done.
media?
Doesn't have
No?
to be complicated. I'm on all the social media too, but an email. We just talk. The reason you and I are here, you're doing this incredible service for the whole world. I mean, you should be very proud of yourself because you're a part of this leading edge of democratic voice that is about human beings talking to each other and sharing stories so we can see clearer. So, you're the one that I give the praise to for doing this.
Well, thank you, Dallas. I'm honored to hear that compliment from you, and I very greatly appreciate it. And it's because of people like you that my podcast gets to exist, and it's also a reason why we get to go out in the world and help people change and see through different lenses, so that they can
Yeah.
further create their own path. So I want to share with listeners today. By the way, I hope you guys enjoyed Dallas's episode. This has been very transformational for me. I hope you guys feel the same way about it. I will have Dallas's email and social media in the show notes. So if you guys want to get in touch with Dallas, and I recommend you guys do, he's a powerhouse of a guy with his story and his beliefs. I really recommend you guys get in touch with him. I want to thank our listeners today for joining Dallas and I on today's episode of the Empower Grief Journey podcast. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with somebody you know who could benefit from Dallas's story. For more episodes that are designed to empower you and support you during your grief journey, visit empowergriefjourney.com and subscribe to this podcast. You can find us on Apple and Spotify. The Empower Grief Journey is all about honoring your journey, embracing your emotions, and finding strength in your own time. You are never alone on this journey, and together we can navigate grief with courage and compassion. Until next time, be kind to yourself and take your grief journey one step at a time.